All right. Okay, so HRT and testosterone's kind of been back in the news. RFK has pushed that out and been like, we're gonna let people start getting testosterone again, which is fantastic, and HRT and all the fun jazz. So great, fantastic. They need to deschedule it. They need to move it. It is right now a Schedule 1 drug, just like cocaine and heroin and stuff like that, or fentanyl and all this stuff. Cocaine is actually a drug that we can prescribe, if you didn't know that. It's a Schedule 1, which means it's the most just restricted and held back and horrible, terrible thing. And if you get caught with it, super duper big trouble. It needs to be moved back down to over the counter, which was before George W. Bush decided that it shouldn't be. There wasn't a group of doctors. It was George W. Bush who decided that it should be the most worst, horrible thing in the world, and you shouldn't have access to it. Then he launched a 10-year campaign telling everybody steroids was unnatural and horrible and terrible, and anyone who even thought about doing them was cheaters and terrible people, which is all lies. I'm glad that this is coming back out. I'm glad people are starting to talk about it. Women are in desperate need of it. Men are in desperate need of it. I probably tested 100 kids between 18 and 25 this year who are in the 200 to 400 range. The optimal for most men is 800 to 1,000, 800 to 1,200, somewhere in there. And for women, it's 80 to 250. The big thing on testosterone, and this is pretty much with all the hormones, and this is what people are missing. And this is, it was funny because they talked about there was a doctor on, I can't remember which, it was CNN or it was on one of the news channels, and they were like, yeah, we don't get taught anything about menopause or hormones in medical school. That's what they were saying, which would make sense because when I see the plans that are written by these medical doctors, I'm like, do you know anything about hormones? Like a lot of guys are taking one shot a week, or like one shot every 10 days, or one shot every 2 weeks, which is unbelievably horribly stupid. That's not how you should be doing it. And women who are being told that like 30 testosterone levels are A-okay. And these doctors are not listening to their patients at all, because they come in, these guys, like I was talking to a guy yesterday, and he's on HRT with his primary care. And his primary care took him from like 180 to 400 and won't let him go any higher than 400 because it's in the middle of the range. And I was like, how do you feel? And he was like, terrible. He was like, I'm tired all day. I'm sore. And he's like, I have no sex drive. And I'm like, those are all low T symptoms. And he was like, yeah, I know, but my doctor told me that I'm good enough. Okay, here's the thing. Your doctor doesn't get to know if you're good enough. You have to tell him or her. The big thing about testosterone, the big thing about hormones is, how do you feel? So for instance, and this is a big one for you women, a lot of times, if you get the right amount of testosterone naturally converts. It's designed to do this. Testosterone converts into estrogen through a process called aromatization. Once it's an estrogen, it's great. Your body can actually move from estrogen to progesterone if it wants to, and from progesterone to estrogen. It can move those things around like it wants to, but here's the deal. You can get all of your problems solved with just testosterone if you get with somebody who knows what they're doing. What you do is you go, hey, how are all your symptoms that are associated with testosterone? How's your sex drive? How's your orgasm function? How's your energy? How's your drive? How's your depression? How's your fat? How's your muscle gain? How's your soreness? How's all the stuff? How's your cognitive function, mental clarity, all those things? List them all out. How are these? Do you have any hot flashes, night sweats, or vaginal dryness? Now, this is for people who are not trying to have a baby. This is for 85, 90% of the population. Okay? This is for your perimenopause. This is all the things. Hot flashes, night sweats, vaginal dryness. If you don't have any of these, you don't need more estrogen. If you do have these and you have all the testosterone things as well, increase the testosterone, try to get into that happy range for about a month or 6 weeks. And then you go back and you ask the woman again, hey, how are your hot flashes, night sweats, and vaginal dryness? And she goes, oh, they're all gone. You don't need more estrogen. You don't need more than enough. We're not trying to get these 50-year-old or 40-year-old women who don't want to have babies pregnant. So we definitely don't need to jack up their progesterone. Progesterone it's in the name what that thing does. Progesterone, progestation, promotes baby forming and gestation. The purpose of progesterone in women is to increase blood flow to the uterus. Well, if you don't have a uterus and ovaries, you probably don't need a lot of progesterone. So the symptoms that you're having are needed to be listened to. So you have to find a doctor who will listen to you. Now, if you want to run it on your own and you're like, I just want you to run my blood and make sure I'm okay. Great. I do that for a lot of people. You know, if you want to find a doc who'll do that, great, do that. But if you're actually trying to solve the issue, your doctor has to listen to your issues. And so like a lot of women will come in, I go, the questions I ask them, how are your hot flashes, night sweats, and vaginal dryness? And they're like, oh, they're bad. Great. List them on a scale of 1 to 10. Perfect. Okay, how often, that whole deal? Great. We get them on testosterone, and when they come back in for their 3-month goals meeting or their 10-week goals meeting, it's how's your hot flashes, night sweats, and vaginal dryness? They're like, oh, it's all better. Great. Or they're like, it was a 7, now it's a 2. Fantastic. We can then add in, that's when you start adding in either estrogen or progesterone or whatever works best for that patient. But if their problems are gone, you don't need any more estrogen or progesterone. And if their sex drive's back, their orgasm function's back, if they're starting to lean out, if they can work out and they feel like a pump when they're working out, they don't feel that sore the next day, if their mental clarity's back and their depression's calmed down, that's what we're going for. So yeah, testosterone's been super, super important. The research on what the research has actually said on the cancer thing is that testosterone and estrogen and progesterone given to women doesn't cause cancer. However, if you have cancer that has enveloped some of these estrogen and progesterone receptors, that can increase cancer issues. So if you have breast cancer, probably don't want to do estrogen and progesterone based treatments. You can, if you want to play this game, you can put testosterone in and then use a Arimidex or tamoxifen or something like that to completely block the conversion of testosterone into estrogen, and that can kind of get it done. But those are options that you want to check out with your doc and try to find somebody who knows what they're doing with this. But that's kind of how that one goes. You don't need, and if your doctor's trying to put, if you're a woman, your doctor's trying to put you on estrogen and progesterone without testosterone, find somebody else. Because the vast majority of you women need testosterone. You don't need the estrogen or progesterone right now. So get that checked out, get that looked at. If you guys are not where you want to be, get your hormones tested. The amount of people who come in here and go, oh, my doctor pulled my hormones, and they pulled TSH, and they're talking about their thyroid. God, that pisses me off too. TSH should not be used in conjunction with thyroid without free T3, free T4 labs. Anyway, if your doctor's not pulling your sex hormone binding globulin, your free test, and your testosterone, I'd be a little bit worried about working with them to begin with. A lot of these docs have a license to do it, but they have zero education, zero knowledge, and they don't know what they're doing with it. So just because somebody can doesn't mean they should. If you guys have any other questions about testosterone, ask us, hit us up. I'd love to answer all those questions. I don't care who you work with. Just get the stuff right. Testosterone should be $20. It should be over the counter, and we should be able to tell everybody how to take it, and it should be solving gigantic amounts of problems. The reason that testosterone was moved to Schedule 1 is because it fixes erectile dysfunction, it fixes depression, it fixes fat loss, it fixes muscle gain, it fixes bone density issues, it fixes emotional issues, it fixes sex drive, orgasm function. And you know what happens when these two things get better? Depression gets better. Family units get better. When you're having more sex, your relationship is better. The government doesn't want these things because it wants you sick and fat and miserable so it can sell you the drugs, and the drugs companies can then hire the FDA agents and keep the cycle of corruption going. If you want to see something fun, go to Grok and ask how many FDA officials have become pharmaceutical execs or have moved to the pharmaceutical industry. 90%, when I asked it, it said 90% of the people who approved drugs, when they were done at the FDA, ended up being paid big money getting a pharma job. So just kind of keep that in mind and wonder, well, why would he say such a thing? Like our FDA is corrupt and they're, just in league with, pharma. That's why. Anyway, get your testosterone, get your hormones back where they're supposed to be. It is a primary function of health and wellness. If you don't have your hormones where they're supposed to be, you can't do anything else. Testosterone is your healing hormone. It tells your body to heal, regenerate, and repair. The reason you feel old and sluggish is because you don't have enough testosterone is one of the primary reasons. There's others, but that's a primary reason. Get that checked first. Y'all have a fabulous day. Thanks for your time.